Hi, welcome back. This is Bread for Life with Nurse Kathy, and this morning I am going to make muffins. This is yesterday or last time we talked about boiling grains being a easy way, easy in that you don't have to mill the grains to cook them and consume them. So today we are going to do what is considered a quick bread. I'm making muffins this morning, and this is moving into using the mill, grinding your berries into freshly milled flour, and then using those to make muffins, which is quick because you're mixing them up in a bowl using a whisk, um, adding them to your muffin pan, and then putting them in the oven. So unlike a yeast bread, which takes time to rise and then reshape and then rise again, these are quick. So you're going to be eating these in about 30 minutes, 45 probably at the most, depending on how long it takes you to mix it together and get it in your muffin tin. Today I'm using kamut, which is an ancient grain. It is still a wheat berry, so that is what I have in here, kamut. And then I am using oat groats, which looks very similar when it's intact to wheat berries. Not often you're going to find this in the store, so many people probably have never seen oats unless they have been in some way processed, rolled, steel cut, you see on a bag. I do encourage you to eat oats. Oats are great for your GI, your gastric tract. The fiber in them is fabulous, and we will talk about it, but at some point, not today, but oats and barley have a special type of fiber, and your lower GI really loves that fiber. So, as someone who has suffered with diverticulitis in the past, I would encourage you to incorporate oats. The less processed, the better. So I would say steel cut over rolled, rolled over instant, because the further it's processed, the easier it is to be absorbed into your bloodstream, possibly spike your glucose. So I would say this form, oat groat, is great. It's unprocessed, so longer to digest, harder for it to break down and release that glucose, and then that rapid release into your bloodstream. So for this morning, I wanted to use this combination because I like to get oats in my diet, and I like the kamut because it has just a special flavor. It will lean toward a corn muffin type flavor once it's ground together. So the Wonder Mill is what we're using this morning. This is the steel mill heads micronizing, as I've mentioned in another video. So this will be loud. I will turn it on, drop in the grains, and then probably cut out the noise, and then we'll see the end result. With this particular mill, as unlike another mill, you do have to turn it on before you put your grains in so that you don't overwhelm or clog that, those grain mill heads, the way they're positioned in this mill. If you put your flour in, then turn it on, chances are you've clogged it or overwhelmed the milling head. So turn it on, add your grains, super quick. Here's our flour container connected via the tube. You will have your flour in no time. Okay, we have milled our flour, and as you can see, we have oat and kamut. Great combination. Soft, fluffy, freshly milled flour. Say that fast 3 times, right? So we're going to do 2.5 cups. This is how I do it. It works. There is a little bit of forgiveness here in muffins, so that's 1 cup. 2 cups. And 2.5 cups. And I do have a little left over, and I will put that in a baggie in my freezer and label it as, you know, what it is, and then I'll use it hopefully in the next day or two. So while it still has its nutritional value, or the maximum nutritional value. And into this 2.5 cups of freshly milled flour, I'm going to add, I have in here 1 teaspoon of salt. And as we said in another video, I strongly encourage real salt because it is full of all the minerals and nutrients that we are intended to consume with our salt. And in addition to that, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And with the baking powder, you do want to take a second and really incorporate it, mix it in. Same with the salt, but the baking soda more importantly, because if you don't have it stirred in like this and incorporated well, the person who gets the bite with, you know, a chunk of baking powder will not be happy because it will taste nasty. Okay, and then I am, for this particular recipe, I'm using a combination of honey and sucanat, which is not in your grocery store. You can search it and order it, sucanat, but it is just a little bit less processed version of a brown sugar. So if you have a light brown sugar, a dark brown sugar you already have in your pantry, you're welcome to use it for this. It is 1/4 cup of sucanat or brown sugar of your choice. You can use all honey, you can use sugar, but you know, the goal is try to get a little bit on the healthier side with honey and less processed sweeteners. So 1/4 cup going in with my dry ingredients. This is one that, you know, sugar's often considered a liquid ingredient, so I've done it both. I have added it with my milk, honey, oil, eggs, and it'll be okay either way. So once you have this incorporated, I personally do not do another bowl. I mean, clearly I'm making a few dishes here. So I have in here 1 1/4 cups of whole milk. You can use whatever you want. I've done this with soy milk. Any non-dairy alternative is going to work here. I'm just going to pour that straight in. I probably should have already cracked my eggs and whisked my eggs. Actually, I thought maybe I was going to put those in with the milk, and I didn't do it. So a little bit of real life here of course correcting. Grab a fork. Okay, so just whisk these with a whisk or fork, whatever your choice is. Gonna add those right in here, 2 eggs. And then in this, I have 1/4 cup of olive oil and 1/4 cup of honey. If you add them together, put your oil in your measuring cup first, 1/4 cup. Add the other 1/4 cup to make a half. The oil will help the honey come out a little bit easier. I mean, clearly you can see a lot of that just slid right out, but so unlike honey by itself in a container, that is much more challenging. Okay, so I have in here 2.5 cups of freshly milled flour. In my case, I'm using Spelt and Oat. 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/4 cup of whatever your choice of sugar is, brown sugar, sucanat, in this case a little less processed, 2 eggs, 1/4 cup of oil, 1/4 cup of honey, and 1 1/4 cups of milk. So that is all in here, and let me get just a little bit larger spatula to work this in. You can do a whisk here. As with most flours, if you've ever made a cake, we're told don't overwork it. So same thing here. Just mix it to bring it together. Make sure that you've got all the ingredients. Yep, right there I had a lot of dry ingredients on the bottom. Just make sure you spin it around a few times. Ensure your dry ingredients are really off the bottom. That's why I like the spatula. A whisk, of course, would do the same. I have my oven on at 400. It is already preheated. And yeah, looked like I had a few larger lumps. I want to make sure to get those. It's funny, the kamut in this, it almost feels more like cornmeal, kind of gritty, sandy maybe comes to mind, but it has a great flavor. So when you're exploring the world of grains, I encourage you to look into kamut and see if you like it. Maybe get a small amount and try it. So this is a half a cup measuring cup. This is millet, another grain, little tiny pellets. You're probably going to see this in birdseed. It's not birdseed. It's really nutritious human seeds that are added to birdseed. I don't quite understand. I haven't investigated that part of it, the industry, but it's wonderful if you are a person who loves texture when you're eating. My husband and I do, so I take a half a cup, actually not a half a cup. I'll do half of this. I don't know, maybe I have done a half a cup in the past. That seemed like it's a little overwhelming. So quarter of a cup of this into your muffin mix, and it keeps its texture. So when you're eating the muffin, you have those little pellets throughout, and it just adds this great crunch. So if you're not a texture person and you don't like that, then you probably would not want to add this here. Kamut though, or excuse me, kamut, yes, kamut just went through my grain mill. This can go through the grain mill. I understand from learning from Wonder Mill specifically that it is better to feed it very slowly because, again, it's small. If you dump it all in, it's going to drop into those mill heads and probably just bog them down. I don't know if it would cause any real issues. So I would say the smaller the grain, feed it slower. The larger the grain, it self-regulates here. And I did see recently that Wonder Mill has even created a small grain regulator type disc tube. Tube is more appropriate, that would go over the entry to the top of the mill that will help regulate that, so you don't have to kind of stand there and pour it really slow. So quarter of a cup of millet going in. Going to stir that in. Grab the muffin tin. Get this in here and in the oven. So I just want to make a couple of comments. I said earlier that I have struggled with diverticulitis, and I strongly encourage oats in your diet to help with that. If you are like me and other people, it's one of those things that the fiber in the oats helps make that lower, sigmoid colon is what it is. That's where those diverticuli live, and where we experience diverticulitis, inflammation, pain, infection when we do. Just love that particular part of your colon, loves the fiber in barley and oats. So if you will incorporate oats, you might find that you have less flare-ups. And less flare-ups in many cases means, less antibiotics, less trips to the doctor, less pain, misery. So it's a good thing. So oats for sure. That's why I'm doing oats in these muffins, because sometimes you just don't want a bowl of oats. You want to have it some other way. But what I have found as well, I'm eating fewer oats. So in general, having the fresh milled flour, consuming it every day, is helping with the diverticulitis. I haven't had a flare up in the time that I've been consuming it, and that area just feels more stable, less sensitive. Okay, so we have our mix here, muffin mix. This is a ice cream scoop, I think. A scoop for whatever you choose to use it for. If you do that, then it portions out quite nicely for this 12 cup large regular size muffin tin. And this particular recipe that we've mixed up here will make 12 muffins or 24 mini muffins, if that's how you choose to go. Again, if you're changing the size of your bread, you will have to think about how long you cook them. The mini muffins are going to get done quicker than these will. I have said recently to a couple of people that if you don't have a muffin tin and muffins are not your thing, you can put this in your loaf pan and make it just like you would banana bread. So no reason to stress. I even said to my young son the other day, you can add this, use your smaller size iron skillet and make just like us from the South would do cornbread. So you don't have to be limited by the tools that you have. You can make it work in other areas. Again, always thinking about what is the volume and what is the cooking time is the bigger thing. So these are going to go in the oven. I'm going to let them cook for 25 minutes. Actually, no, excuse me. Bake in preheated oven 15 minutes. We're going to let these cook 15 minutes. Check them. It's as with quick breads and a cake. The way to know if they're done is the toothpick test or cake stick, whatever you use to check to see if you have any batter in the center. Once you don't, then they are done. And we're going to start with 15 minutes. I think because we added the millet, don't know if it'll interfere with that or not. I would imagine 20 minutes at most. And we will be back when these are coming out of the oven to show you what they look like. Hey there, we're going to get the muffins out and see how we did with 15 minutes. Look at those. They rose really well, so our baking soda and eggs did its job. I made a mess putting them in the pan. That's okay. It's just a mess I'm going to have to clean up. And these are done. Alexa, stop. So I've checked a few. Toothpick coming out clean. What I didn't say earlier is I was using the USA pan, silicone coated pan, so you didn't see me oil these, flour, prep, butter. I did no pre-work to the muffin tin to prepare it for the batter because I know this one doesn't stick. You know your muffin tin, so if you have anything other than USA pan, I've had them, Pampered Chef, other brands, I've had to prep them with oil, and even sometimes that didn't work. So if you have anything else, I recommend that you prep the pan however you know you need to before you put your muffins in, because you don't want them to stick. You want everything to come out intact like these do. As you can see there, this one popped right out, flipped over. I'm going to leave these in the pan for like 5 minutes. I'm going to put these on a drying rack. I guess this is a cooling rack. Drying rack is what this is called. It is, in my case, a Pampered Chef elevated rack and then I put all my bread on it to cool. I'm going to put this on here, let it cool for just 5 or 10 minutes in the pan, and then take them out. That's mainly because you don't want to handle them when they're really hot. So again, these were 400-degree oven, 15 minutes, worked fine. And just another comment or two on diverticulitis. I know people who suffer with it. It's unpredictable. You're miserable, fever, pain, all kinds of GI symptoms that nobody wants to deal with anytime for any amount of time. But having worked in the ER, the number of people who would come in with diverticulitis flare-ups have to get IV antibiotics because you're trying to let that GI relax and not take in food. And in my case, the first time I had it, doctor put me on by mouth antibiotics, and it just made everything worse. It was a nightmare. So at that point, I just decided, I'm going to try to do this without antibiotics. And that's what I did. I just tried to do diet, fluid, rest. But again, this is not medical advice. This is experience advice. So you work with your doctor and decide what you need to do. But my experience has been Oats was magical, miracle, level at helping prevent, as long as I consumed them regularly, and that was at least 4 or 5 days a week. And I found that Bob Red Mill steel cut oats seem to have the best fiber. I'm not sure why. They're all oats, they're all processed. Why would one be different than the other? But I was using organic Bob Red Mill steel cut oats for my 3 to 4 or 5 times a week consumption, and that seemed to work. But if I missed a day, if I went more than 4 days without then I could feel an episode starting. So but now that I've added freshly milled flour, I strongly encourage you to get your meal, get your grains. If you don't want to do yeast spreads, which can take a little bit more time, um, I would say this is how to go. Quick breads with your muffins, cakes, cookies, brownies. That's how you can get it in your diet. And there's always the question of how much. How much do I need? I consider it my prescription now. As much as I want, but three, 4 times a day is what I encourage. So, okay, I hope this helps. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.